Hey there, welcome to the archives. So, this one is going to be called By People That Give Me Hope. And so, last week I watched season 2, episode 3 of Trafficked by Mariana Van Zeller. And the episode was called White Supremacy. So, in it, I learned that these people, they don't see themselves as white supremacists. They were calling themselves white nationalists, is what the episode said. And they align themselves with RAM, which stands for the Rise Against movement. And so, what Mariana was investigating on in the episode was how some of them are traveling to places like the Ukraine and Israel and training with their military, or that's what at least was reported, right? Allegedly, that's what the episode was talking about. And so, I posted after I watched it. I posted on LinkedIn about how uh, these people, white nationalists, white supremacists, RAM, what have you, the Proud Boys is what they're called in the United States. Um, some people call them alt-right conservatives. I've heard people call them incels. There's so many different names, but they're preparing literally for a war. Meanwhile, we have people asking DI professionals to bring harmony. The next day, there was a domestic terrorist attack in Jacksonville, where Black people were targeted. White supremacy episode, they were talking about how they really hated the media. Um, and that's definitely happening. Book bans, history, curriculums being banned, all of that is happening. And all of that usually happens under authoritarian dictatorships, under fascist regimes. And people really hate to hear those words, and we don't think of ourselves as those things, but more and more it is happening, right? Again, I'm trying to remember just from around me to still have hope, right? That good triumphs evil. I read the Globe and Mail today, and it's bad out there. Like there's almost 500, for over 400 wildfires in just 2 provinces in Canada alone. That's just BC and Northwest Territories. They said almost 195 of them are out of control. Again, that's only in 2 provinces. That doesn't even account for the hurricanes that was going through Florida. Like it doesn't account for vast majority of the world and the things that are happening, right? And you still have people denying that climate change is a thing. You still have people denying that the Holocaust was a thing. There was an article in the Globe this weekend about Auschwitz. Like these things are documented. They happened. And people are like, nope, the Holocaust never happened. Totally not real. And so I'm not sure what the collective sense is, but I've been thinking about white people that do give me hope, because it's just you can get really caught up in the fact that every single white person is a racist, and all of us are born into these racist regimes, and so for all of us it's really hard to escape, right? Especially white people. But I'm trying to remember I'm trying to find the glimmer of hope. And so I've been thinking, I'm currently pet sitting. On the bookshelf, I saw Lawrence Hill's The Book of Negroes, which totally shocked me. Um, Maybe that's my own assumption, but I didn't think that I would find Lawrence Hill, The Book of Negroes, in this home. And I did. And I didn't read that book until 2008. I'll never forget it. I read that book. I specifically brought it with me in Ghana in 2008. I had gone with, at the time, one of my really close best friends. We'd gone there, and I wanted to read it back home. And we read it around the time where we visited the dungeons. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Where we visited the dungeons in Cape Coast and Elmina. And I remember reading the Book of Negroes, and it destroyed me. It also awakened something in me, and I was only 23 years old, right? I think about how this white couple, this is a white family, has this book on their bookshelf, and like what that means. That is definitely a form of resistance, especially right now when like critical race theory bans are happening, when they're lying about the enslavement of Black people, Black Africans, as if it was something that totally was so beneficial. Read the Book of Negroes, and you tell me where any of that was helpful. I also was right thinking I remember reading Amistad very specifically. I was like in what, like the fourth or fifth grade. I remember reading Roots. I remember watching the documentaries when they came out, the movies. Those are things you will never forget. Like, I will never forget reading the Book of Negroes, right? So they can burn the copies as much as they want, they can ban them as much as they want, but there are still families like this who have the Book of Negroes on their bookshelf, right? I think about these three kids in this household that are growing up in a home where they have access to a book like the Book of Negroes. I didn't have access to that until I was 23 years old, and I'm a Black African Canadian woman, right? That gives me hope. Now, will they ever read it? Have they read it? I don't know. But that gives me hope that despite all of these bans, there are still folks who are still resisting. And I think that is what is terrifying for a lot of white people who are very racist or who are bigots or who are stuck in their old ways. It's terrifying for them to see other white people having open minds. It's terrifying for them to see white people letting Black people into their homes. Like, you let a Black woman watch your home and your dogs and your pets. That's not to say I'm still not surveillance and they still don't aren't suspicious and all of these things. All of those stereotypes still very much still happen. But I think it's terrifying for a lot of white people to see other people changing because change is not what they want, right? I took the dog for a walk yesterday morning, and there was a white couple that was walking, and I said good morning to them because like that's just the culture I come from. You say good morning, unless I'm not having a good day. But we were having a good day. It was a good morning yesterday, and they both just looked at me and just like didn't give me a dirty look, but they completely ignored me. And my first thought was like, oh, you guys are racist. Like, totally, bunch of racists, right? And I wanted to focus on that because that's what the brain does. It focuses on the negative. But I had to remember, like, no, just before I met you assholes, there was this amazing woman that I just talking to, really kind woman, white woman. We're talking about her dogs and the dog breeds. The day before, I ran into a couple. It was a white man with his Asian partner, and they know the dog here. They have this adorable schnauzer, and we got to talking, and there wasn't any hate, there wasn't any malice. It's not, I don't know their politics, but I also know that like people are not completely awful in this world, right? um there are anti-racist, white anti-racists that I know one who follows my channel and just had a newborn, and I was thinking this morning about like her daughter is being raised with a mother who is a white anti-racist woman. Like, how different is it to grow up in that world where that your mother, who's a white woman, believes that Black lives matter, and your mother believes that Black lives and all lives matter so much, and Indigenous and Brown lives matter. That she's willing to do the uncomfortable work to face some of the messages that she grew up with that maybe she thought was right, and is learning that that was not right. Right? In that white supremacy episode, the man that got de-radicalized, he only got de-radicalized because he owned a record shop, I think it was, and he said that he had Black people come into his shop, he had Jewish people come into his shop, he had brown people come into his shop, and he just bit his tongue, and he actually got to know them. Shocking, they weren't awful. The things that he had learned about them and about our communities were total lies. And that was the only thing that made him realize that he was believing something that was not even founded on any truth. He had to get to know us for ourselves. And once he got to know Black and brown people, he realized that he had been fed a lie, right? And so, again, it's not to say that these people are perfect and that we're all not operating under these systemic structures that reward them for being white nationalists. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying any of them are perfect. I'm not saying that even doing anti-racist work will be the end all to racism. That's not what this is about. What I want to focus on here is that there are folks out there I do see trying, who are making mistakes and still going, right? There will always be those who hold tight to the old ways, who want to make it great again, who are yearning for like biblical time. But I think more and more I'm seeing changes. I am seeing, even if it's performative, I have no clue. Maybe these people I'm running into are totally fake. Um, and behind closed door, they may be the most racist in the world. I have no clue. I could be totally wrong, right? I was also thinking today about how social media is very, very fake, and a lot of us are struggling. But we go on social media, and our lives are totally perfect. So maybe this is just a facade, and I'm not like it might be getting way worse. I have no clue, but I think some people are changing. I think there's a lot of changes among us. I see kids that are getting along with different races that maybe I just wrote a chapter yesterday where I was talking about the first time somebody called me the N word, right? And then I think it was 1994. I was in 9 or 10. I was in the fourth grade, right? And yeah, people are coming together and uniting, or I hope, right? I think we're unlearning. I think some of us are relearning. I think more of us are opening our minds. Some of us are waking up. Um, and I don't want to forget that, right? I think it could be too easy to think that evil is just winning and we're always going to be divided and, fighting. But I do want to keep hope alive. So that's all I want to talk about. Until next time.